everyone, and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. Today I'm going to be talking to you about things that I wish I had really stuck with or knew and really had down from day one of marriage or partnership. And to me, it's important because, you know, when we come into a relationship, we are that fighting spirit. And I know I was. And yet I realized that although things happen for a reason, and it has truly helped me grow and admire and love my husband even more, that there perhaps were things that I passed on that my children were able to see that maybe, you know, they had to question whether or not it was the right way of being a good partner to my husband and vice versa. But at least I can only speak on my behalf today. And so we're going to speak of, or with me, just allowing myself again to be true to my word and just talking about 6 things that I wish I truly had down from day one. And the first one is trust your husband. Now, here's the deal. There are many, many times where a silence, you know, they say silence speaks louder than words. And many times, my husband being very meditative, I would think that I would start to read into his silence, not realizing, you know, we just had a recent talk about how he carried many things alone and it was in his mindset to think better for one to worry than two. And sometimes in that moment of silence, again, speaking on my behalf, you read into it and you start thinking, oh, there's got to be this wrong, this something else is, happening and so forth. And yet I would come to realize later that it was perhaps far from what I was thinking. And, his silence just was about him working things out to make things better. And yet it was me trying to read into it. The part in that trust also is when he makes a request, that fighting spirit, you're thinking to yourself, why? Your pride kicks in. You're thinking, no, I don't want to. These are the things that I feel like I shouldn't be, doing because you're telling me to. And if someone else would have had you do it, you would have been like, sure, no big deal. But because it's your partner, again, for me, that fighting spirit would kick in and go, no. And then I was defiant in it only because that challenge was starting to come into mind. Like, okay, now you're making me do something that I hadn't planned on doing. And all of a sudden, that trust is at a loss because it could have been as simple, yes, you've got me, I'm going with it. I'm down, let's go. And yet you waste time and energy in just trying to fight it. In addition to that, with that silence and that request is the trust in the vision. Again, sometimes you may not see things the way that your spouse or your partner is seeing things. And so that trust is at question because you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't see it your way, or I don't see where you're trying to go to. And I don't even think it's going to work. All of a sudden, that confidence that you could have built in your husband or your partner ends up being drawn away or drained because of your questioning, because of your lack of trust in him, rather than just saying, whatever it is, I'm down. Whatever you see, I see. And maybe you don't, and yet you just continue to pursue and really show him that you are believing in his vision, no matter how clouded it is, that you are there for him. The second one is go with the current. I was a rebel being married so young, and there were times where I felt like I knew better. And, sometimes, be honest, I still think sometimes I do, but I have learned really to just go with the current because at the end of it, your spouse or your partner will carry the heaviness of not getting to where they had thought they were going to go. And that's a lot of a load to carry. And if I go with that current and if I'm rowing in that same same direction with him, and we get somewhere where he hadn't destined for us to go, and then he may have to take a turn, it's in him to go, oh my goodness, I brought my family to this situation, and now I have to roll back or pull back a little bit and go in the direction where I had hoped for or that I had moved toward, and yet here I am having ended in this. But again, it goes to show that you were actually believing in him and going in the direction that he wanted to lead his family into, and going with that current got you there faster, whether it be the destiny that he had hoped for or that he hadn't anticipated. Yet you're together and you just kind of go, okay, we're going to go pull back and we're going to go in another direction, but it's okay because we did it together. If you are not going with the current, all of a sudden it's time wasted, it's energy wasted, and it's just so much of a havoc that is created by you again, having that doubt and it's seemingly rowing in the wrong direction or the opposite direction, and all of a sudden it seems like the ship is just going in circles and not going anywhere, because while he's trying to take you in a certain direction, you're being that opposing side that go, no, I want to go this way, I want to go this way, and all of that friction all creates conflict. And when you have children involved, it causes confusion and a lot of drainage for everyone's energy, rather than pretending inside to say, okay, you know what, Dad's got this, we're going in that direction, and no matter what, we're going to move together. Because again, just really going with the current will at least get you to whatever destiny that you're rowing toward together and faster, so that if you do take a wrong turn together, if you do end up in a destiny that you had not anticipated, you are still together and you're still working things out until you eventually get to that destiny. The third one is respect him. I can't emphasize enough. I was perhaps, I don't want to say culturally, but maybe my upbringing was, we were very comical about things. And sometimes the things we said about our partner or spouses, I heard it at times, was, that put down. And I got to a point where I didn't realize that the put downs was a lack of respect for my spouse or my partner. And openly, in front of others, thinking that was a way of being humble. And again, it could have been cultural, it could have been just my upbringing, but really being humble about this great partner that you had, this great man. My papa was a great man, and yet there were times where I would hear, unfortunately, my mom say some things that would somehow seem humbling, but yet I could sense that it was hurting a bit of his pride and his self-love and his self-honor. And so all of a sudden, that lack of respect that you're showing towards your partner or your husband ends up giving that permission for others to not have that respect for your husband or your partner. And I realized that I was cultivating that in my surroundings, so that when I joked around, I gave permission for my children to joke around in the same manner or say things that perhaps they didn't mean to, but then they also saw as being funny, because if I laughed it off, then it gave them permission to laugh it off, not realizing that any type of disrespect was disrespect. And so I have really come to understand that I reap what I sow. And so if I want to have a good harvest, I want to make sure that I am saying respectful words, respectful, just anything that is of respect of my husband, so that it then nulls and voids or rids of anything that anyone could be thinking to say or speak of and around me. Perhaps they may be saying things that they want to, out of their own thoughts, outside of my circle, but at least within my circle, if I show respect to my spouse, then I know that I have created that environment for everyone else around me to say the same, rather than the opposite, where I give people permission to be disrespectful, whether it be somewhat jocular and we're thinking that we're being funny. anytime that I realized I was saying something that may have been questionably disrespectful, it took away the manhood that I should have been actually creating for my husband. The fourth one is honor him. And some of you go, well, that's the same thing as respect, right? Not necessarily. When you respect your husband, it is really making sure that you're not being disrespectful, that you are not saying mean things, that you are, saying things that are kind and thoughtful. Honoring him, now got to remember, okay, you don't worship your husband. You don't think that, you bow down to him and that you do as he says. Honoring him is just looking at him with so much grace and that sparkle in your eye to go, wow, you are a remarkable man. You have done great things. And those times you were silent and you didn't tell us what was going on, that you worked out on your own. I am so grateful for you. And all the things that you've done for this family. And at the same rate, having gone against, the request that he made to just need you to be his partner, and because he had a vision, and yet maybe everything was so clouded and you couldn't see it his way, and yet you look at all the things he has taken the family to because of his vision. And there were times that he pulled you along with him, even though he knew deep in his heart that you may have not truly believed just as much as he would have wanted to. That is that honor that you really should be giving your husband, and saying, you know what, no matter what, you are that one that will take us to the greatest heights. And I am grateful for your leadership, and I will stand by you, and I will make sure that my devotion to you is clear, so that everybody knows, even if they may think that there is doubt, that I am the one who will not doubt you, that I will stand by your side. And that is that honor that I believe, I really worked within me as time progressed. The next one is being one, biblically speaking, right? One flesh doesn't mean being the same. Now, if that was the case, then Gerald would have married someone who was just like him. And yet, he is looking for someone who will complete him. And that means that there is this oneness about you where you complement each other, where he may feel that he is strongest in, then you can rely on him to go, okay, I'm so glad you're right by me, because now, we stand together as one strength. In the same way as perhaps there was something that he wasn't able to think of, and yet you were there to help him work it out and think it through. And so that he can say to you, wow, I never thought of it that way. Thank you for helping me through and thinking things through. And, it goes with that oneness of when one is feeling a bit drained, the other should be the energy to say, don't worry. We're carrying through together this burden or this heaviness or this challenge, and we're going to be together to the end. And it is this oneness about this relationship where you should feel strength when perhaps you could have felt so weak if you had been alone. And so that oneness is that sense of energy, that sense of spirit, that sense of love and gratitude, that feeder that you need to keep going, so that you are not feeling like you're doing it all on your own. So at that point, again, just understanding that you don't have to be his homie. You don't have to like everything he does. You don't have to do everything he wants to do, with his friends or by himself. You have got to understand that you being you is what he needs to be him. And I realize that now, that we complement each other, that I don't have to think that I've got to like everything he likes, that I've got to do everything he likes to do. Because when you have that mutual understanding and respect and love for one another, you will learn to just go, okay, maybe it's not about me today, or maybe it's not about me right now. This is about you, because at this point you need it for your feeder to move on. And I'm okay. You know, you're at your 5 and I'm at a 9. So maybe at this point you just need a 1 from me or a 2 from me just to get to a 7. And that's okay, because then we'll be 7 together. And that's all right. You know, for us to be one means we can really rely on each other side by side. Lastly, the very last one is to date him. I know that sounds silly, especially when we have children. I cannot tell you how many times I said to my husband, no, I don't want to go to the movies because I've got to be here with the kids, with, you know, just giving that mom excuse. I'm too tired, you know, I feel frumpy, or, you know, don't feel like it. And my husband's the kind of person that really enjoyed, you know, buying me a new dress. He could picture me in it, couldn't wait, buying me that perfume, couldn't wait to, you know, just smell my presence and so forth. And yet I'd be like, okay, well, thank you. And then going back to that momhood of just feeling like, what's the big deal? You know, it just, you have to remember that in their eyes, they see you, aside from being a mother, aside from being anything else other than their partner and their wife. And that's how they want to be reminded always when they look at you. Doesn't mean they don't accept you as a mother. That doesn't mean they don't honor you and that they don't love you for your strength. I have to, and I had to learn that dating my husband was important for him, because I needed to continue my relationship with him and able for us to continue to have that strength as one. Not always where we allowed our children to direct us in our lives and predict what our moments would be. Sometimes we get caught up in allowing everything around us. And, you know, even if you don't have children, it could be your cat, your dog, your house, your own parents, your in-laws, everything else that all of a sudden is directing your relationship rather than each other. And what is so important that I realize now is having that walk with my husband and just listening to him, and then reciprocating that where he is listening to me, and just being that friend that he needs, you know, at every given moment. Now, always understand that it also means that if you are going to continue to date him, you can't have these conditional moments where you're seeing him as what you want him to be for your sake all of the time. Sometimes dating someone means you're allowing them to be who they are so that they can work out who they want to be for you. And I have grown to be so much stronger as an individual, as a partner to my husband, and I see his strength growing in front of me and his love for me, and us reciprocating that throughout the years we've been together, because we have learned that we've got to be true to each other. Some people are, and you know, if that works for you, but some people are all about, you know, don't ask, don't tell in a relationship. And for us, we have always treated each other as if we were our truest friends from the very beginning, and as we continue on. And sometimes it's brutal. Sometimes people could be hearing things, you know, that you say that you aren't supposed to say to your spouse. And yet, at least with us, we have decided that we were going to be honest with each other from day one. And I'm grateful that I've learned to continue to date him. And he, you know, my husband has always been the one to initiate that. Let's go out for a walk. Let's go, you know, watch a movie. Let's go out to eat. I am most likely a homebody, you know, most of the time, where I wouldn't mind just staying home all day and being with my children. And then there goes that where you forget, well, hold on, you know, now I don't know what my husband's thoughts are, what his life is about, because I've completely immersed myself in this motherhood, and I've forgotten to be a friend to my spouse. So keep that in mind once again, the things that I had wish I had down to the T from the day one. And it's okay, because when you love your partner, they'll grow with you. But boy, it would perhaps save me some time, some energy drain if I had known this from the beginning. And that is, again, trust your husband no matter what. Understand that he has a vision for your family, and that you have to trust in his silence that he's working it out, and that he doesn't always want you to worry. And that's that strength in him. You just have to trust that he is leading you guys into the right direction. The next one is go with the current. Stop fighting it. If even if it seems like it may not be right, you may say something, but if he's like, persistent, saying, no, let's just keep going, go with it. Because if somehow he ends up in the wrong direction, do you know how much of a heaviness that is for a man to have to carry, knowing that you have to turn around and start over, or perhaps, step back a little bit and start a new route? But at least he knows that you believed in him. And so that goes along with that respect him, the third one. Respect him in knowing that you are not going to think badly of him, that no matter what, you will be the first to have high regards for him, so that you create that environment for your husband, for your spouse, for your partner, and that everyone knows, hey, this is a man of respect. I respect him, and that is what he deserves. The next one, of course, then, is to honor him, making sure that he knows that you look at him with great gratitude, that you are grateful for his existence in your life, that he is your partner, and that he knows you believe in him. Next one is, one doesn't mean the same. Don't think that you always, you have to go play ball with him, which is great if you do, right? But he wants that lady. He wants that one person he looks at and goes, that's my wife. That's the person I married. And, I've got friends, but I've got only one wife. And boy, is she, someone that can't compare to anyone else. So be each other's complement. Doesn't mean you have to be like him. Just be by his side. And lastly, date him. Don't let your friendship go just because things get in the way. Make sure that you remember who he was when you first met him. I still remember my husband saying to me, hold my hand if you are scared, when we were our first, date at this amusement park, and we're on this pirate ship, and all of a sudden I felt him grasp onto me. I love the pirate ship ride, and yet he was one holding on to me tight, and I fell in love with him from that moment, because I realized, you know what, we're going to be just fine, because here's this strong man, and yet he has some vulnerabilities as well. So keep dating him, keep loving him, keep honoring him, keep respecting him. Get that down. If you can hear anything of my words, is that start today and don't fight against it, because he is truly going to be your greatest friend to the end. And just know that if he is a man of love for you, don't force it, right? Obviously, there are men out there who's like, pick the wrong seed, pick the wrong one. As Judge Judy would have said, you put this in your gene pool, but at least know that you are giving it your best. You are giving it your best in your relationship to do the part that you need in the relationship to grow, and keep with it. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Keep loving you. Keep loving what's around you. Keep believing in what is in your circle. Keep with it. There are going to be many, maybe even just a few, but they will try like crazy to try and put doubt into your relationship. But as long as you are one, then you are unbreakable. Keep it together. Keep together the togetherness that you have for one another. Keep loving each other, and just be all about the love. We'll see you next time.